Today we're going to talk about book events for authors. The reason I'm doing this video is that I scoured YouTube and blogs and I just couldn't find anything concrete or comprehensive. I am the type of person who loves a checklist. If someone tells me what to do, I'll do it based on their experience. But all the other videos that I've seen were more like, here's my setup, but not exactly like how to do a setup, how to get book events. I am headed off to the Woodbury local author event. I'm just going to talk about my process and how I did everything, my setup, a little more closer information, and then at the end of this video I'll talk about how to find these events in your area as an author. I haven't done book events in years due to the pandemic, and also during the fall of 2019 was when I first got my paperbacks from my publisher. For that, I had gone to a bunch of events selling ebooks. Not great, very difficult, because people who go to book events, like, they wanted something tangible to take home with them. And even when I had like free coupons to download and stuff like that, it didn't match what I wanted in terms of ROI. So it really wasn't worth going to these events other than networking, but especially if you have to pay for a table, it's like really not worth it. I have paperbacks of my 2 women's fiction books, my reverted young adult paranormal book, Take Back Your Book, which is a nonfiction for authors about rights reversion, and I actually have a couple of copies of my upcoming thriller, Her Buried Lives. I'm taking all of those with me, and I thought this was a great time for me to start networking with local authors and local libraries and all these fun events. So that sort of jump-started me wanting to do this one specifically. So when it came to starting off the event, so I knew I wanted books. That's the most important thing you have to have. In terms of supply, I did an event 2 weekends ago, which I did a whole vlog about, and I gave them basically a carton of books, like probably 3/4 of a carton, and I had a couple left. One of those is for me. I'm using it as like when I go to events and stuff to read from it and things like that, so I'm keeping that for myself, and I had like 3 extra copies. So the book's not out yet, so anyone who, gets it, they get it weeks ahead of time, which is great. And then I didn't really order anything else. I had a lot of backstock of my women's fiction novels, and I had a bunch of paperbacks for Take Back Your Book. I have some hardbacks of Take Back Your Book, but half of them were like printed really wonky, and I didn't want to bring those, obviously. I think I may, at other events, I may like offer them at like 75% off, because the inside is fine. It's just Amazon really messed up the printing on those hardcovers, and I'm not super pleased about that. You got your books. If you don't have any in stock, I would recommend looking at the event if they've done it in the past, also how big your table is, things like that. At this event, I have a card table size, so it's relatively small, and I don't know much about this event. So I basically, since I'm trying to get rid of a lot of my inventory, I'm just like bringing everything and seeing what happens. Even if you are a traditionally published author, you usually can buy author copies from your publisher at cost. I believe my cost was a bit higher than I anticipated, because when it comes to my self-published novels, they're like half that price, half the author cost for my HarperCollins books. I think in the future I probably would order more just to have them in stock, but it really just depends. Like, you don't want to have a ton of stock if you're not like doing events. Just make sure you're not throwing too much money up front in terms of stock. At events specifically, you have to look at the event itself, because there are 30 authors at this event, so I can't imagine that people are coming in and buying books from every single author. So you got to think about that too. We'd all love to have everyone just sell out our booths, but it really doesn't happen, especially at these events. If you were at some event where you were the only author there, yeah, I may bring a little more. And it also depends on your readership. So if you have a huge readership, especially in local area, things like that, you may sell more books. If you're new to a certain genre or it's your first book event, you may not sell anything. Just go based on that. I know when I did my event in Glastonbury, they specifically wanted 15 books. I gave them 16 because I couldn't stand like the odd number. And that was an event where there was a lot of authors. So again, you don't want to be bringing, 100 copies of all of your books at an event where there's 50 other authors that, consumers have to look through and pick and choose. In terms of the table, I wanted to showcase things specifically. I know there's like a ton of pictures and stuff online of people's tables, and I tried to zoom in on a lot of them and I couldn't because they were just poor quality or something, and I just had to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So obviously you have your books now. So when it came to my table, I wanted to have opportunities for people to come up and look and not have to feel like obligated. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I'm talking to someone and someone's waiting to be like, how much is your book? And then I say the price, and then they're like, oh, okay. And then they, leave, and then it's awkward for everyone. So I wanted to have a price list. So I created a price list in Canva, and I'm going to have it displayed so people can see it from a distance or they can walk by. So I wanted to give readers the opportunity to, like, if they were on a budget, to swiftly pass the table, and then no one feels awkward. So you have the price list up front, and you have your books. And I also wanted, which is super important if you're an author, you should have an author mailing list. At the very least, have an author mailing list sign-up sheet at the table. I highly, highly recommend this. This is how you're going to connect with your readers, especially if it's local events. You want to connect, and then, maybe they'll come to another event, or maybe they'll invite you to their book club, or maybe they will tell all their friends about your books. Like, you really want to connect at this point. I took it a step further because I have a newsletter set up already. I created a flyer that's like, subscribe to my newsletter, and it's a QR code, and it also has my website on it so they can sign up that way. Even if, say, like, hey, I don't have enough money to buy these books, but I still want to connect with you. You have that avenue as well. So we're trying to build up a readership here. As a self-published author, I sell from my website, and I actually have merch too, writer merch and reader merch, and I sell my ebooks on my website. Sometimes I open it up to paperbacks, but I really don't have a lot of time to like ship out all my books. So I just primarily have my self-published ebooks on there. It's integrated through BookFunnel. And if you want a whole video on that, I'm happy to do it. It really doesn't have to be expensive. You can just print out a piece of paper with a couple QR codes. A lot like Venmo has one that you can just like take. You don't have to create one. And all of these things. So however you can make payment easier is the best for everyone, especially if you just want to focus on connecting with people. You don't have to worry about, all this cash handling and stuff like that. And a lot of people don't pay cash. A lot of people don't have cash. It was a struggle for me to get some cash for today. So I have a Square Reader. So you can actually get the Square Reader, the most basic one, for free. I think you have to pay for shipping on their website. I figured since I have a lot of events coming up, and because I want to invest in doing more live events, I purchased the one above, which is the chip and contactless payments, along with like regular credit card swipes and stuff like that. So you don't have to do that, but if you want to do a ton of events, I would recommend getting the best technology. You don't need like the ones like with the stands and things like that unless you want to, I suppose, if you're like doing a lot of books. In terms of payments too, I would love for future events, like I always said I was going to do this, but this one just specifically I didn't have anyone to come with me. I would always like to have someone do payments for me so I can connect with readers, but sometimes that's not the case. So the Square Reader really makes it a lot easier. You just tap, swipe, insert the chip, the receipt gets sent off to them. I spent a little time setting up, but I have to say Square in itself is really, really easy to use. I know a lot of people have feelings about it, but I've had a good experience so far. It was very easy to set up my store and everything, and I don't necessarily have it linked to my website, but it's just going to be like exclusively for events, and I can manage my stock and things like that, and knowing what I have to order. I think they have notifications where it's like, you need to order more books, and I'm like, okay, because that's one less thing I have to think about. So then when it comes to the actual setup of the table, like I said, it just depends on how big of a space you have. I want to make it really easy for myself, so I ended up buying a rolling tote from Amazon. I'll put the link in the description if you want to check it out. It's really cool. It all folds up too, so when I'm not doing events or like, you know, in between events, I can put it away. It's not some huge, massive thing. And it's really nice. I love it. I haven't had issues with it so far, and everything fits inside. So, and it also acts like a chair, which I like. If there's an event that you don't have a chair, you can sit on it, which is really nice. In terms of setting up the table, I did do a test run at my house with part of my kitchen table that was a little bit like a card table. I think it was a bit small, but I was able to like move things around and stuff and get some idea of how I wanted to set up. So like when I get to the event, I know exactly how to do it. So if you are going to events that you have to bring tables and tents and stuff like that, I would really recommend setting it up the way that you want for that particular event, moving things around ahead of time, snapping a picture, and then bring that with you to the event. So right when you get there, you know exactly what you have to do. There's no like, oh, this could go here, this could go there. You already have everything all set up. As you can probably tell, I'm a really big planner, and I think with these events specifically, it's really important to plan. You want to really showcase, you know, your store. Basically setting up a pop-up shop, you know, whenever you go to this event. So you want to make it enticing. One thing that I did too, or around Halloween, but I plan on doing it for all seasons, is having a little bucket of candy, which brings people to my table. So in terms of finding events like this, you could go a lot of different ways. I did a postcard mailing to local libraries. I have connected to a bunch of local bookstores in my area. Like I said, I did that event 2 weeks ago, and you know, I'm hoping to stay on the list, but I'm also like really connecting where I can to, you know, those specifically. That's sort of like the higher level. Like obviously you want to get in touch with libraries. Obviously you want to get in touch with booksellers, but then you can go to, you know, different craft fairs. So if you're in your area and you see an arts festival or a craft fair, check out their website, see, you know, if they are offering events, or you have to sign up to be a vendor with them, or when their next event is, and you know, you want to make sure that it really aligns with you. So, and you can go a step further and sort of look at some events that are based on your books. So say your main character, they love dogs, or dogs are featured in the books. Like, go look for like dog shows. You know, you're going to where your readers are. So those people go to those shows because they love dogs, and you have a book that has dogs in it. You know, anything like that. So start to be really creative in terms of the events. It doesn't have to be a straight bookstore, library, craft event or vendor event. It could be, you know, for different events. Just get creative. You know, think about the elements of your book and where those people go. Some cozy mysteries feature, you know, knitting or baking. So go to a baking convention or a cooking show, or you know, where they sell cooking stuff or supplies and things like that, and go sell your book. You know, I'm sure these events are so happy to have the support from local authors, and it's just fantastic. You just want to be sure too that the event is in your budget. There are a lot of free events out there, but there's also ones that you have to pay a certain fee. So that's going to go into your budgeting as well. You want to make sure that when you go to these events that you're actually making the money back. Maybe the first couple you don't until you get your sea legs, but after that, you know, you if your intention is to sell books and make this a business, you really have to look at budgets, ROI, stuff like that. You know, keep an eye out for events, especially around the holidays. I know at least in my area, there's always a ton of like shopping events, craft events for the holidays specifically. You also can look to your community as well. You know, if you write books for children, you know, connect with local schools. See if you can get a whole bunch of authors together and you can create an event, a book fair of sorts for you and your author friends. Like, the sky is the limit with a lot of these things, and I think it's super important to, you know, come out of our comfort zone. I know a lot of authors are introverts. I myself am an introvert, and I know at the end of this event I'm going to be exhausted, but you still do it. Do you want me to go into detail about anything, even if it's just like, how did you make this flyer? Let me know and I will go over it with you. There wasn't a lot of resources out there for me to really be like, okay, I feel confident about this event, and I'm hoping to be that person for you. And if not, you know, ask a question and I will talk about it. And, you know, you're probably not the only person who has a question, so feel free to let me know in the comments. I tend to reply to all of my comments unless it's spam. So I'm happy to discuss all of this with you. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell next to it so you know the next time I upload, and I'll see you soon.